Uh, Still finishing chapter 13. I mean 14. Whatever chapter the second one was. I finished chapter 13. I'm still finishing chapter 14. I don't have Lisa and Karen here yet. Let's see. I don't think I can finish it in time. Yeah, I don't think I can finish that in time, no matter how late it might be. At least I don't think it'll be very interesting for any of you sitting there watching me read. Maybe not the most enthralling, unless I read out loud. Do that. I don't think I'll get very far. Oh, Tom, must you? He said, feeling his good name was gone forever in the business world if this was done. See, doesn't even make sense. You don't know where I picked up. Makes sense if you already read it, but then you already read it. This is right after Tommy just rubbed out the name T Bangs and Co. because Nat lost money, literally lost it somewhere. And Tommy doesn't want to end up losing his money. I must, returned Tommy firmly. Emil says when one man bezels, I believe that's the word, it means to take money and cut away with it, the property of the firm. The other one sues him or pitches into him somehow and won't have anything more to do with him. Now you have embezzled my property. I shan't sue you and I shan't pitch into you, but I must dissolve the partnership because I can't trust you and I don't wish to fail. I can't make you believe me, and you won't take my money. Though I'd be thankful to give all my dollars if you'd only say you don't think I took your money. Do let me hunt for you. I won't ask any wages, but do it for nothing. I know all the places and I like it, pleaded Nat. But Tommy shook his head and his jolly round face looked suspicious and hard as he said shortly, Can't do it. Wish you didn't know the places. Mind you don't go hunting on the sly and speculate in my eggs. Poor Nat was so hurt that he could not get over it. He felt that he had not lost only his partner and patron, but he was bankrupt in honor and an outlaw from the business community. I think I said it wrong earlier. I mix up their names all the time. Nat's the one who they suspect stole money. Tommy's the one who had them. That he suspects Nat stole, that Nat swears he didn't steal, but he's treating him like he did anyway. Woo! Tell me how anything has changed in the past couple of 100 years, or the entirety of humanity. He felt that he had lost not only his partner and patron, but he was bankrupt in honor and an outlaw from the business community. No one trusted his word, written or spoken, in spite of his efforts to redeem the past falsehood. The sign was down, the firm broken up, and he a ruined man. The barn, which was the boys' Wall Street, knew him no more. Cockletop and her sister cackled for him in vain, and really seemed to take his misfortune to heart, for eggs were fewer, and some of the biddies retired in disgust to new nests which Tommy could not find. They trust me, said Nat when he heard of it, and though the boy shouted at the idea, Nat found comfort in it, for when one is down in the world, the confidence of even a speckled hen is most consoling. Tommy took no new partner, however, for distrust had entered in and poisoned the peace of his once confiding soul. Ned offered to join him, but he declined, saying with a sense of justice that did him honor, It might turn out that Nat didn't take my money, and then we could be partners again. I don't think it will happen, but it will give him a chance and keep the place open a little longer. I will give him a chance and keep the place open a little longer. Billy was the only person whom Bangs felt he could trust in his shop, and Billy was trained to hunt eggs and hand them over unbroken, being quite satisfied with an apple or a sugar plum for wages. The morning after Dan's gloomy Sunday, Billy said to his employer as he displayed the results of a long hunt, Only two. It gets worse and worse. I never saw such provoking old hens, growled Tommy, thinking of the days when he often had six to rejoice over. Well, put him in my hat and give me a new bit of chalk. I must mark him up anyway. Billy mounted a peck measure and took it and took into the top of the machine and looked into the top of the machine where Tommy kept his writing materials. There's lots of money in here, said Billy. No, there isn't. Catch me leaving my cash around again, returned Tommy. I see 'em. 1, 4, 8, $2, persisted Timmy, who had not yet mastered the figures correctly. 1482. What a jack you are, said, and Tommy hopped up to get the chalk himself, but nearly tumbled down again, for there actually were 4 bright quarters in a row with a bit of paper in them directed to Tom Bangs, that there might be no mistake. Thunder turtles, cried Tommy, and seizing them, he dashed into the house, bawling wildly, It's all right, got my money, where's Nat? He was soon found, and his surprise and pleasure were so genuine that few doubted his word when he now denied all knowledge of the money. How could I put it back when I didn't take it? Do believe me now and be good to me again, he said so imploringly that Emil slapped him on the back and declared he would for one. So will I, and I'm jolly glad it's not you, but who the dickens is it? Said Tommy, after shaking hands heartily with Nat. Never mind so long as it's found, said Dan, with his eyes fixed on Nat's happy face. Well, I like that. I'm not going to have my things hooked and then brought back like juggling man's tricks, cried Tommy, looking at his money as if he suspected witchcraft. We'll find him out somehow, though he was sly enough to print this so his writing wouldn't be known, said Franz, examining the paper. Demi-prints, tip-top, put in Rob, who had not a very clear idea what the fuss was all about. You can't make me believe it's him, not if you talk till you're blue, said Tommy. And we have Elisa.
Hi,
We have the top of Elisa's head.
I'm still setting up. I was trying to write something down and I had an error, so I had to fix it.
Well, I haven't finished reading yet, so I was just reading it out loud to anybody who might be watching. I figured there
Feel
was no
free.
that I would finish it, and I was right because I still have 4 pages to go.
Oh.
4 pieces of paper, 8 pages to go.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Demi-prints tip top.
I'm gonna Karen.
I'm here.
Okay. I don't know if this is gonna work, guys. Let's see. Oh. All right. You can put it down. No, you can stay. Is it? Stay put. Ah.
You guys talk for a minute. I'm just gonna skip ahead really fast.
All right.
Well, Karen didn't finish reading because she's passing out, so
I didn't finish reading either.
I have a whole
The only
chapter to go.
reason
I
I
wanted to
finished
make it.
reading is because I don't know if he's gonna stay. Because I listened to it on 2.5 speed on my audio.
That's the only reason Lisa finished.
That's the only reason Lisa finished. So I may have missed some details.
I went swimming for like over an hour and got home and tried
Passed
to
out.
read only to be tired, too tired to finish reading. I wore myself out swimming.
Okay. Hi.
And wear my glasses like I'm supposed to.
I way back when I had my wisdom teeth out. I um I had some rocks in the tumbler. Or not when I had it. Well, I did when I had it out, but when I oh, what is the word I'm trying to come up with here? When why are words so hard? When they like went in and manually cleaned out the infection after having some teeth out. I had some rocks in the tumbler, and they I was like healing from that second procedure, and I kind of forgot about them. And if you leave something in the tumbler too long without refreshing it, it sort of
Disintegrates?
what?
Disintegrates?
No, more like puffs up and ends up with the bottom puffed out and scraping against the edge of the tumbler. So my husband heard it making funny noises in here and came and turned it off. And I was still a couple more weeks before I managed to actually open it up and pour the top bit of water out. And so now I need to clean these rocks off, see where they are, and figure out what to do with them. something I have not had a chance to just sit down and do yet, so time for that now.
Well,
This is not a rock. This is compacted grit from inside the tumbler. The whole bottom is filled with.
well, you guys know how I'm working. Well, a long time ago, I was working on my temperature scarf.
Uh-huh.
It's currently all the way back on March 24th.
I saw I saw a picture of a red blanket the other day that said wanted to make a temperature blanket, but I live in Florida.
That's funny.
What is their cold? What, 70 degrees to our 20?
What?
Do they use the same color for 70 degrees that we use for our 20?
Probably. In my Bible study last week, the person who like wrote the book that we're using and the videos that we're using lives in Texas. And she said something about something that she and her husband had done to help somebody out who, granted, it was somebody who was from Africa, and depending on where in Africa he was from, might be more used to warmer temperatures. But still, she was like, so we brought him over a warmer jacket because it gets cold in Dallas in November. So I looked up the average temperature in Dallas in November, 70.
That's
Yeah,
cold.
no,
I was like, he
that,
needed a jacket for 70 degrees. But I had a friend at college who technically lived in Texas, but had grown up in the Bahamas. Her parents are missionaries. And if the weather got below, I think it was below 90, might have been below 80, she was running around in a green parka. If it was below about 70, that green parka was zipped up. And if it was below 60, then she had it pulled up in front of her face. And no matter what the weather, she always had a headband on, like an ear warming headband. I was just like, we're in Florida.
I have a couple coworkers that run around in sweaters while it's 90 degrees, and I'm just like, no,
one,
thank you.
That was both of my children on Saturday at various points. First, one of them, when we were headed to a family reunion, but we stopped at the grocery store, and I look at him, I'm like, why are you wearing a hoodie? And he's like, oh yeah. I was like, how are you not hot? He's like, no, I kind of am. And then I had taken his hand and it was so warm. And I'm like, you need to take that sweater off. You're going to overheat. And so he took it off and then never put it back on for the rest of the day. But we still got to the family reunion, which is outside. It was, what was it, like 80s probably on Saturday?
Yeah.
So insanely humid. And I look at my other son, I'm just like, and I had already been like, how are you wearing long sleeves? But then one of our I don't remember which one it was, my sister-in-law or my mother-in-law, I think. One of them looked at him and they're just like, how are you wearing long sleeves? And it was just like the thin long sleeves, the one that's like t-shirt material but longer. And she's just like, how are you wearing long sleeves? How are you not like completely dying? And he's like, I am hot, and took it off. But I'm just like, why do you guys need somebody to tell you it's hot before you realize you're hot and take your long sleeves off?
My niece will do that too. She'll grab a sweater and wear it, and I'm like, or she'll wear sweatpants, and I'm like, it's like 85, 90 degrees. Why?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, it's too hot for that kind of clothing.
Crazy, crazy kiddles.
Of course, then she also tries to run around in shorts in the winter, so you know.
you know,
They just
I'm the
have no
person
sense of
who
temperature.
wore no sleeves vests with tank tops in winter. So, I mean, I did my share of wearing the inappropriate clothing.
Yeah, But it's one thing to just like wear the inappropriate clothing in one direction because you're less prone to heat or less prone to cold or whatever. But when you swap them completely, then it's really confusing.
Hmm.
Anyway, hey, so we were reading
Chapter 14 and 15.
chapters 13 and 14.
Yeah,
Did I
Lisa,
read the wrong chapters?
Did you skip Goldilocks?
did you skip Goldilocks?
I must have skipped Goldilocks.
So
That was
neither
a cute chapter.
neither
How dare you
Karen
skip
nor
it?
I finished chapter 14. Lisa missed chapter 13. Let's give each other recaps.
Goldilocks was a super cute chapter about Beth.
Yes, it is.
Well, I missed it. Okay.
Their little princess. Their little princess, little Miss Goldilocks, because Goldilocks is canonically a princess, apparently. Hold on, I do need to open the book for a second because there were a couple things right at the beginning of the chapter that I wanted to point out. After Huckleberries. Maybe they're at the beginning of chapter 14. Let's see. There was something that I reacted to and wanted to say out loud. Wonder what it was. Oh well. Anyway, after the adventure of the kids getting lost with the huckleberrying, the older boys felt like it was partly their fault, so they didn't want to do anything. And the younger boys were like scared to stick their head outside after dark, lest darkness come grab them and scare them with bear cows.
Yeah.
So, it was quiet for a little bit, but the visit of little Miss Bess
And
had
Joe's
lots
like,
to do with that too.
anyone who raises boys knows it's the quiet before storm, not a peaceful era.
It did.
I was wondering why chapter 14 started with Mrs. Bear was right about how the peace wouldn't last, and I'm like, well, I don't remember that part of last chapter.
That's why.
That's why.
This way.
Yep. So they were partly more peaceful because of Bess, and particularly because Bess was such an innately prim and proper little princess.
Yeah, so
Even
they
at,
behaved well.
what is she, 2 or something? 2 or
Yeah.
3 years old.
She just did a cutie patootie.
And oh my gosh, she's so adorable. I'm like everything she writes in how Bess talks, I'm just like, she's my favorite. I love her. She's so adorable. There's no way she's this preciously perfect because no child actually
She's
is.
Amy's daughter, right? Beth is Amy's
she's
daughter?
Amy.
Okay.
I'm thinking like she's so prim and proper. She got that from her mama.
She got it from her mama.
Oh,
got it
she
from her mama.
absolutely got that from her mama. Certainly didn't get it from Lori. Maybe from her mama and her great grandpa. But unconsciously she did her young subjects more good than many a real sovereign, for her rule was very gentle, and her power was felt rather than seen. Her natural refinement made her dainty in all things, and she had a good effect upon the careless lads about her. She would let no one touch her roughly or with unclean hands, and more soap was used during her visits than at any other time, because the boys considered it the highest honor to be allowed to carry her highness, and the deepest disgrace to be repulsed with the disdainful command, "Go away, dirty boy!"
Aww.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, this chapter is mostly just, all the boys trying to gain her love and trust and, Oh, Stuffy is not a neat enough eater for her, so she doesn't like him. And consequently ends up when he wants to give her some sweets, and Joe's like, no, she's not allowed to have sweets. But you can give her your sugar rose that's in a pretty box. And he's like, wouldn't she just eat that? And she's like, not if we tell her it's just for looking at, not for eating. She'll just appreciate the pretty rose. And then she's like, think you could do that with sweets? And he's like, well, I hope I can. I'm older than she is. So it becomes an opportunity for Stuffy to learn a little bit more willpower.
Aw.
And several of the others that are just the way that they are is something that she dislikes, and so they try to change how they're acting. Like Ned Ned was banished from court in utter disgrace when he was discovered tormenting some unhappy field mice. Goldilocks never could forget the sad spectacle and retired behind her veil of her hair when he approached, waving him away with an imperious little hand and crying in a tone of mingled grief and anger, "No, I can't love him, and I can't love him. He tucked the poor little mouse's tails off, and they queeked.
He was torturing the mice.
They queeked."
Aw.
So cute.
But I just love the conversation between the bears. They teach us quite as much as we teach them, said Mr. Bear. Bless the dears, they never guess how many hints they give us as to the best way of managing them, answered Mrs. Joe. I think you were right about the good effect of having girls among the boys. Nan has stirred up Daisy, and Bess is teaching the little bears how to behave better than we can. That is bears, B-E-A-R-S, just to be clear.
Not their name.
If this reformation goes on as it has begun, I shall soon feel like Dr. Blimber with his model young gentleman, said the professor, laughing as he saw Tommy not only remove his own hat, but knock off Ned's also as they entered the hall where the princess was taking a ride on the rocking horse, attended by Rob and Teddy astride of chairs and playing gallant knights to the best of their ability. You will never be a Blimber, Fritz. You couldn't do it if you tried. And our boys will never submit to the forcing process of that famous hotbed. No fear that they will be too elegant. American boys like liberty too well, but good manners they cannot fail to have if we give them the kindly spirit that shines through the simplest demeanor, making it courteous and cordial like yours, my dear old boy. Tut tut, we will not compliment, for if I begin, you will run away, and I have a wish to enjoy this happy half hour to the end. I just love them, like, and with your influence in my husband, hey, we're not going to sit here complimenting each other, because if I start complimenting you, you're going to run away, and I want to enjoy time having you still here with me. They're just so cute. And then, that's how, because Nan was sewing some stuff for her, but Nan usually doesn't like sewing. That's how Joe found out that Nan likes sewing for other people, just not her own stuff. It seems dumb doing it for herself. So she has started having her, or decided to start having her sew for the poor, for some poor families that they know, instead of for herself, to get her more practice with sewing without having to force her every time. And then when Teddy came to take her home, Teddy, Lori, whatever you want to call him, came to take her home, they're practically begging her to stay. And none more than Billy, who literally cast himself down before her, hugging her little blue boots and blubbering despairingly, "Don't go away, oh don't!" Goldilocks was so touched by this burst of feeling that she leaned over and, lifting the poor lad's head, said in her soft little voice, "Don't cry, poor Billy. I will tiss you and tum it in soon." This promise consoled Billy, and he fell back beaming with pride at the unusual honor conferred upon him. Me too, clamored Dick and Dolly, feeling that their devotion deserved some return. The others looked as if they would like to join in the cry, and something in the kind, merry faces about her moved the princess to stretch out her arms and say with reckless condescension, "I will test everybody."
So cute.
I love them so much. They're so adorable. Yes, best to stay for a week while um Amy and Laurie went to visit grandfather Lawrence. Was a good week for everybody all around. One of the things I forgot to say at the beginning of the chapter that I do particularly like is and where it says it. It is too good to last, said Mrs. Joe, for years of boy culture had taught her that such lulls were usually followed by outbreaks of some sort, and when less wise women would have thought that the boys had become confirmed saints, she prepared herself for a sudden eruption of the domestic volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Wise woman.
Which leads
And
into the
again, just
chapter that
more of I
read,
love how much Joe became Marmee.
right?
And
Yep.
then it's Damon and Pythias, which I did not finish reading.
Oh,
That was a long chapter. Damon and Pythias is a long chapter.
it is. These are all, there's a lot of long chapters in this book.
It's a lot of back and forth. Like Goldilocks was a much shorter chapter, which is probably why I fooled myself into thinking that I could go do the other thing I needed to and still have time to come back and read Damien and Pisces, whatever those sports are. But I had to go drop something off to a friend and stayed longer visiting than I should have and ran out of time to finish reading.
Give me. So basically, Tommy was doing really well with his business. And he ended up getting a whole $1, I think, from something. I can't
He
remember.
was up to $5 when he sold his eggs, and he had been saving money in the they called his savings bank, which in this case means like essentially like a piggy bank, but it's not a piggy shaped one. It's a
Right, yeah.
building a building shaped one, so it looks like an actual bank. I don't know if it actually is shaped like a bank. I just remember that it was shaped like a building, but I love the idea that it looks like more like a bank than most banks.
Right.
But Father Bear told him he had to get up to $5 before he was allowed to get into it. And so his hens have been laying really well. And when he got the fifth dollar from selling, I think it was 4 dozen eggs for $1.
Right.
Times have changed. Four dozen eggs for $1. Now you can get a dozen egg for $4.
A little bit
He
of price
put it
change there.
immediately in his piggy bank. He put it away.
I just have to pause for just a moment. I don't know if this will come through. Maybe if I turn this light on.
Mhm.
That's too much. Can you see
That's a
the?
lot of coloring.
It's like orangey red with like black swirled into it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Anyway, turn that back off again because I am ghostly pale even when I have a tan.
So he didn't put his $1 in his bank right away.
He
He
did
said
not.
he figured he'd put it there in the morning.
Well, first they came and were like, "Oh, you have to come see this," whichever critter it was that I think Dan had found or something, and then he and Nat ran off to see it, and then he like hid it in an old machine in the barn, but it wasn't there anymore. But he didn't go back to get it, rather.
Right. He saved it
I
to
can
get it
remember
from
till that
morning.
night. Lisa, the part that you're at with the colors looks kind of like candy corn, and I think it's kind of hilarious that it's most likely to end up looking like candy corn when it's not candy corn weather.
Yeah, this is the yellow is 40 to 41 to 50, and the orange is 50 to 51 to 60 in February and like March alone. Look how much orange there was.
That's just wrong.
We didn't. I have a color for 100, but we didn't hit 100. Oh, that one's pretty. It's
Every
50.
single one of these are ones that my boys and I have found.
My
This-
color for 100 is black, by the way. So if we hit over 100 degrees, my thing will turn black. That's death weather, in my opinion.
My little sister lives in Idaho, and she sent a message the other day. She's like, you know, the weather is too unbearably hot when you're just like, oh, good, it's only 103, not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
My coworker was not this past weekend, but the weekend before, she was on a biking trip and she ended up in Tennessee and it was 104. And I'm like, that's hot.
I couldn't bike that way. I couldn't do it.
No.
It's a 0% chance I would survive trying
Well,
to bike.
it was a motorbike, but still doesn't make it
Doesn't
any
matter.
easier. It doesn't make it any easier.
You still don't have AC on that.
No.
When you stop at a red light, you're still roasting.
Yeah. So
Anyway, so he remembers it that night as he's going to bed, and then is like, you know, it's fine. I'll get it in the morning. Nat's the only one who knows where it is anyway, so it's fine.
right, it's not gonna have any issues. And then
And thus we know it would not be fine, because why would you be telling us this story otherwise?
when he wakes up in the morning, it's gone. He cannot find it. And he asks every single boy if they know where it is, and none of them, they're all saying they don't know where it is. And
Now,
everybody's thinking that Nat stole it.
the way that they assume it's Nat is it's understandable, but still difficult through much of this. But to his credit, he did not immediately run to Nat. He ran to all the boys and said, whoever took it, give it back. Before ultimately settling on it must have been Nat.
As non-judgmental as he could.
For at least 2 minutes. So
I'm
then,
gonna orange soup.
once nobody else admitted to it, they were kind of all like, I mean, Nat was the only one who knew, and Nat's like, I know you all think it was me, but it wasn't, I swear it wasn't. And they're
He's
like,
like freaking out because he's like, I really didn't do it.
but you are the only one who knew. So then Father Bear hears them and comes to find out what's going on, and gets very, very sorry for this story, because all the other faults that they may have until now, they have always at least been honest boys. And so he sits them all down and says, I'm going to ask you each one question, and I want you to answer me honestly. I'm not going to try to scare it out of you. I'm not going to try to trick you into it or surprise you into answering. I just want to know. Which I love that description of essentially interrogation techniques. Like, again, like, humans gonna human. Like, we know,
Right.
like, that's the ways that interrogations and such happened then weren't, and investigations happened weren't the same as now, because forensic science wasn't really being developed. It was on the cusp of being developed at like the end of the 1800s. Probably 2 decades or so after this, I think. But he was still like, I know that this is a thing that people do to try to get answers. I'm not going to do that, because you all have a conscience. So, a couple of you have a conscience that was worked on in the last chapter, or 2 chapters ago, but he didn't specify that. But you all have conscience. You are fully capable of just telling me the truth. So I'm going to ask each of you. And they each said, nope, wasn't me. And then he got to Nat and like softened his voice and his stern gaze, because Nat looked so miserable already. I swear it wasn't me. Yep. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to ask you guys about it again. I realize And Nat, you have to realize with your history and some different things, and the fact that you're the only one who knew where it was, you are the most reasonable to suspect. But I'm not going to punish you for something until I know for sure what happened. So until we know for sure, nobody is to pester him about it or treat him differently. Like if that was ever going to possibly not happen when they didn't know for sure. And he's like, I'm not going to say another word about it, and you guys would do well not to say another word about it too, because it won't do any good. Because then even out of the room before some of them are saying more words about it. Like he was being too easy on him. Oh, hush.
What I liked best was about that part there, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was when Mr. Bear was like telling them, he's like, honesty's best policy. He was like, you don't want to add deceit onto the manipulation already. And I like that because
theft is bad enough, but
so
I don't want you to have
even
deceit
though-
on top of that.
right, somebody stole it, but they didn't want to add lying to it. Coming forward clean now would be better on even on their conscience alone, not necessarily in punishment ways, but on their conscience alone to come forward now, even though they had committed the theft. I liked how it was like, it's better to come clean now than later. It's one of the things I work hard with here is like
I was just thinking about that with our niece. They tried really hard. They still try really hard to be like, just if you do something wrong, don't lie about it. Because if you don't lie about it, you're not, they'll be more compassionate toward you. You lie about it, and then we find out that you lied. Now we're upset that you did it, but now we're more upset because you lied about it.
Yes.
mhm.
That's been a regular thing with my kids. One of mine being a little bit more prone to lying than the other. Everybody's got their own follies. The other one's certainly prone to his own stuff. But the one who's always been more prone to lying is getting a lot better about it than he has been in the past. But it takes a long time, and that's one of the things that something that I remind myself of regularly, but have to keep reminding myself of, and I think this book is doing a good job also reminding me of that we've been working on it for a long time. How many things have I had to work on for a long time in my own life? They're not finished yet. They're works in progress. I'm a work in progress. We're all works in progress, and rarely does anybody learn a lesson the first time.
I know growing up, I was quite the liar myself. So it took a long time to break that habit.
I went through a stretch of a lot of lying, and a lot of it was that people-pleasing tendency, and I don't want somebody mad at me, so I'm just going to say the thing that is
presumably little white lies kind of thing.
And I was so bad at that, and usually nobody ever caught me in it. I knew it, but amusingly, there was one time somebody had asked who had done something that I was just like, not me, and then I realized later I had literally forgotten, and somebody else had known that I had done it and pulled me aside later after I had already gone to the original person, was like, I'm sorry, I forgot that I was probably like 13, but I was like, I forgot that I had done that. That was me, but I totally forgot. And then I remembered later, I was not trying to lie to you. And we had already worked it out. But somebody else who didn't know that we had already worked it out was like, I heard you say this, and I happen to know that you did do that. And this has really been weighing on me. And that was the thing that really got me to work on not lying anymore. It around age 13 or so. Because of somebody who caught me in a lie that was not a deliberate lie. I think if anybody had caught me in any of the lies that were a deliberate lie, it wouldn't have resonated as much. But for some reason, that being caught in a lie that was not on purpose resonated more of like, I really need to be as honest as possible. And I still strive to be as honest as possible all the time.
I had a lie that I felt absolutely terrible because I didn't realize it was a lie. I was a child of 6 years old. And we were going to my grandfather had asked me, he's like, have you been fishing before? And I was like, no, I've never gone fishing. And then he was in the hospital. And I remembered that I had been fishing before. And I felt so bad about lying to him. So I was gonna go tell him, but he passed away in the hospital. And so I, as a little child of 6, felt absolutely terrible that I had lied to my grandfather and not been able to apologize for it.
Aw.
My mom's like, he knows that you lied. He took you fishing himself. But not till I was much, much older and I told her this story and how bad I felt.
Aw.
She's like, he knew. You just forgot because you were a little kid. But like, I at 6 did not. That was like so terrible. I still grew up a liar. Like, didn't stop me from lying.
Well, after that point, the boys started being absolutely terrible to Nat. And the point that I started reading on camera at the beginning of Karen, you didn't see this, but while I was waiting for both of you, because Lisa only got on maybe a minute before you did, not even a minute before, I think. I hadn't finished reading yet, so I was just reading out loud to whomever might be watching until you guys got on. Still didn't finish it, but the parts where I started reading on camera at the beginning of this was when Tommy decided that he couldn't trust Nat and crossed out the name of their business, Tommy and Co. Or T Banks and Co. Sorry. Crossed it out because he couldn't trust Tommy. But in the meantime, he had, was it Billy? Doing the hunting for eggs for him. He doesn't have like the way that he has his chickens aren't all in one coop. They're like very, very free range and move their nests to different spots at different times. But Nat knows where they have their eggs, and they trust Nat to come collect their eggs. And when Nat's no longer the one collecting their eggs, several of them move their nests. And that's a little bit of comfort to Nat, at least, when people are constantly suspecting him. Except for Daisy. Daisy, for some reason, just fully trusted it wasn't him, with no evidence to support this. Just something in her is like, nope, I know it's not. But yeah, they have moved their nests, and so he's getting fewer and fewer eggs. He's at like a third of the eggs that he previously had. And yeah, I lost my train of thought.
I'd be a terrible person.
Who was it? Oh, Ned. It was Ned, right? That was like harassing Nat. Nat's like, if Dan was here, you wouldn't. And Dan's overhearing all of this, and then came and, shall we say, taught Ned a lesson.
Threw him into the river.
and somehow all of his curiosity seemed to stay in the river. when he left it.
Mhm.
And that one's gonna need some more time. And then Dan was like, I'm sorry you're having to deal with this. And Nat was basically like, I don't mind so much when it's me, but I can't stand him speaking so badly of you when you had nothing to do with it. But then after a little bit, he's like, you know who did it, didn't you? Please, Dan, if you know, just tell somebody. And Dan's basically like, don't worry, we'll get through it. And then, I don't know, Lisa has to take over now.
So Dan gets a little bit they're used to Dan being moody, but he gets quiet and he's constantly like leaving the room. He's not hanging out with people very much at all over the next couple of days. Like he's just very reserved. He's not talking to anyone. He's not sticking around and he's always out. Like you said, Nat thinks that Dan knows who did it. And then Tommy and I think it was Ned, I can't remember for sure, where it might have been Billy, were looking.
There's so many names.
Well, I was also listening at 2.5 speed, so the names flew quick. But
Man,
so they
people
were
freak out about me listening to stuff at 2x speed.
I was listening to it so I could finish it in time, and I wasn't even reading the right chapters.
Yeah, Goldilocks was the shortest freaking chapter.
I know. I wouldn't have had to rush so much if I'd read
But
that.
on the plus side, you're ahead of chapter for next time.
Right? So they're hanging out in the barn, I think it is, where Ned keeps his board, like with his information, like his eggs, his money, like the board he showed Nat when he started. I can't remember where that is. But
It's in the barn.
right, it is in the barn? Okay.
I believe so, yes.
All right, I thought it was. And then Billy sees something in the rafters and he looks up this box and there's a dollar.
I did technically read this part, but I had skimmed a fair bit of it.
There was a dollar. And he's like, look, it's a whole dollar. And right in it is a note that says Tom Banks on it, but it's printed, so you can't read the writing.
Well, you can't identify who wrote it.
Exactly.
You can read the writing.
You can read the writing, but not who wrote it.
Which was funny to me because, like, I definitely know people's hand printing too, and I'm pretty sure from the way they were talking about it that they meant like printing instead of cursive.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, everything was cursive, so if you wrote it out in hand printing, they wouldn't know who it was from.
I was thinking typewriter.
That's what I thought at first, but the way that they kept talking about it, I think, but I could be wrong too. It might just be that was how I think it was Billy that interpreted
Yeah, I
it.
think it was Billy. So
Which makes
Tommy
sense.
not
He's the one
wanting
who's
to
been
have
hunting for him.
Tommy not wanting to have Nat in trouble any longer, runs in and is like, guys, I found it. Don't worry, I have my dollar. It's fine. My dollar has been found. We're okay. And at the same time, Mr. Bear walks in and comes in, I believe, with the book in hand. And he said that he had found this book in town at one of the stores, and I think it was Joe's book, one of Joe's books that she lets them read.
Was it one of Joe's or was it the science one that they had given Dan? I don't know. I just glanced and saw that something about Dan.
I can't remember which book, but the person who gave it to Dr. Bear told him that it was worth way more than the dollar that they bought it for, and that he found out it had been sold by Dan. And Dan admitted that he sold the book. He's like, why? And Dan's like, for money. He's like, what did you need money for? He goes, owed somebody.
Why, it's the book Uncle Teddy gave Dan. So yeah, it's a science book.
Oh, okay. So it is a science book. He's like, owed somebody money. And then Dan really doesn't say much more on the subject, but except for that it was for Tommy, and they all realized that the money that Tommy found was money Dan had put there for Tommy. So now everybody thinks that Dan is the one that stole the money. And but they're all trying not to say anything. Dan's being really reclusive, almost like he's gonna run away again. Like Joe is really worried that Dan might run away again just when he's finally home because of how he feels and how upset he is. And then they go to have class, I believe, again a couple days later. I'm not fluent with the time frame in this book. If I hadn't proved that already. Um, they find it wasn't very long. I don't know if it was the next day or a couple days, but they find that Mr. Bear comes in and he's talking about how he found out with a smile on his face about how he had found the real culprit of who had stolen Tommy's money. And when they ask who, he points at an empty chair and says that Jack had become remorseful and it had been Jack. I have no idea who Jack is, to be honest. It does not ring a bell in my mind.
Me either.
I know he'd been talked about several times through the book, through this chapter, but I don't recall him before this chapter. I didn't recall Ned before this chapter either, so But he just left a note saying that he saw where Tommy had hid the money, and Tommy had a lot of money, so he didn't see the problem with taking it.
Wait.
Yeah,
you keep going. I'm looking up who he is.
Okay. And but he felt bad after everybody had accused Nat, and then Dan had got in trouble for it and all of that. And so he had decided to return. He told the money when the money was in his floorboards, I think. And he said, I'm going back home. Tell Demi he can have my stuff because I probably won't be back.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. So Jack left because he felt so bad and he didn't think he'd be accepted again for stealing and lying, and letting someone else take the blame for what he did.
Two other people. Both Nat and Dan got blamed for what he did.
Yeah, exactly. So other people got blamed for what he did, after he stole and lied. So he didn't feel like he would be welcome, which is why he ran back home.
All right. So Jack is one of the original boys. So let me just scan through chapter 2 and see if I can find how he's originally described. Here. Jack, he has a pretty short paragraph. No wonder we don't remember him. Jack Ford was a sharp, rather sly lad who was sent to the school because it was cheap. Many men would have thought him a smart boy, but Mr. Bear did not like his way of illustrating that Yankee word, and thought him his unboyish keenness and money-loving as much of an affliction as Dolly Stutter or Dick Sump.
That makes so much sense. Because I read the next chapter too. So that makes so much sense.
Well, I just, in the process of searching for that, saw something that referenced chapter 15. So I have a little bit of a sense of what might be in the next chapter.
Yeah. So he lives with his uncle. His uncle sent him there because it's cheap, and yeah. He likes money, which is probably why he stole Tommy's money.
Probably. Sounds right. I just want to be like, here, feel this one. Do you think this is ready for polish, or does it need one more grind? But, you can't feel it.
Feel it. I don't quite remember like the ending statement to the chapter, but I do know that everybody was kind of sad to see Jack not here anymore.
It says
they apologize to Nat because poor Nat deserved it.
And
I think he apologized in the letter.
Tommy proudly restored the name of the firm. Nat was devoted to Dan, and all the boys tried to atone to both for former suspicion and neglect. Mrs. Joe rejoiced over her flock, and Mr. Bear was never tired of telling the story of his young Damon and Pythias. I don't know who Damon and Pythias are.
Neither do I.
Damon and Pythias. The story of Damon and Pythias is a legend of Greek historic writings illustrating the Pythagorean ideal of friendship. Pythias is accused of and charged with plotting against the tyrannical Dionysius the First of Syracuse. Pythias requests of Dionysius to be allowed to settle his affairs. Dionysius agrees on the condition that Pythias' friend Damon be held hostage, and should Pythias not return, be executed in his stead. When Pythias returns, Dionysius, amazed by the love and trust in their friendship, frees them both.
Sinbad.
Yeah, Sinbad. The cartoon Sinbad. Yep.
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 That's not. Some of these I'll have to have my 9-year-old come give me his opinion on because he's been helping me sort the rocks.
Nice. So
But
I
some
just
of them I'm
realized
like,
I do
doesn't
have
matter what
a-
he says, this needs another grind. Like this one.
So 10, 20, 30 to 40 to 50.
Okay.
Oh, am I doing the wrong color scheme?
There we go.
So 10,
Another
20,
nice little modeled one.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70.
It's like dark, like red orange. It's a little bit darker than it's showing up, at least through my on my screen through my camera. But this side where it looks whitish on the screen is more of like a pale orange. It's like a almost like a quartz mixed in with whatever this dark red is and made like a pale orange and then the dark orangey red. And then I have this one that all the black spots are like inset and the quartz that's polished more is sticks out a little bit further than most of the black spots. So when I finish the polish, then those will be shiny and most of the black spots will be matte.
Give me, I just lost it on the floor. I was gonna show you guys my color scheme because I haven't really ever showed you guys my color scheme, but I lost one of them on the floor. And it's not coming. It's gonna roll. Okay.
Looking ahead while you're getting your color scheme to show us, I have been applying to be a vendor at a bunch of various events. And one of those events, our local fair, is a week-long event and happens to fall on a Book Craft Tuesday. So
Okay.
there will be a longer break at some point in September.
All right. I'm gonna flip my screen here so you guys can see into my bag. Hmm. Maybe.
Flip
Can I flip my
screen,
screen?
Flip screen, flip.
There we go. Okay. So in my bag, this silver is if it gets below 0. This is 0 to 10 or 1 to 10. 11 to 20. Purple is 21 to 30. Pink is 31 to 40. Yellow is 41 to 50. Pumpkin orange is 51 to 60. This one, which is more like a neon orange, is 61 to 70. Bright red is, what did I say?
71.
71 to 80. Dark red is 81 to 90. Black is 91 to 100. And anything over 100, which we haven't hit yet, is this speckled black.
Nice. I
So
hope you
because
achieve it.
we have hit the 90, so I do have to use the black, but so far not the speckled.
Yeah, I meant I hope you don't have to use the speckled black. It's gorgeous. I hope you don't have to use it.
Oh, I used it in them. So what I used it for originally was for Mom's shawl that I made her for her tarot reading when she was doing tarot reading. She wanted a shawl, and that was the main color I used for it, along with obviously some oranges and reds and stuff. It was really pretty.
That's cool. which is great. It's a great color. Use it for other things. I just hope it's not
That's
over
all I
time
have
for you to have to use
left.
it on that.
I have like 4 skeins, and that's all I have left.
You'll be like 2028 being like, I finished my 2024 temperature blanket.
You know, I saw some people posting last month that they finished last year. So, you know, I'm not too late. I'm only a couple months late. It's fine.
I absolutely would be like in 2030, like I finished my 2020 temperature blanket.
Yep. And this is why I chose a scarf, because I can easily work up the rows and do it. So I figured it'd be a great first temperature thing.
It's just quartz. There's nothing different to show you, but this one's so perfectly smooth.
So nice. Excuse me. All right, it's 8 o'clock.
8:01, in fact. Although technically, neither of you have been here for an hour yet.
I know. I was busy trying to write my numbers, and then as I was writing my numbers, something didn't add up because all the way back in April, all the way back in April, I messed up and I skipped a day when writing, so I had to figure out where I skipped a day. It was not fun.
It's not even a complete ring. It's like a little, like, it spirals.
That's cool.
It starts there and ends there.
That's cool.
It's not like a full spiral around or anything, but it like ends under where it starts, essentially. That one needs to go a little longer before it'll be ready to polish, though.
Yeah, so it was actually good that I went back and checked it, because I was like, oh shoot, I missed a day
That's
in my
good. That
calculation.
you
So I
checked.
went
I
back
mean, not
and
good that
checked
you
it.
missed a day, but good that you
Yeah,
checked.
but that's why I was like 6 minutes late, because I had to go back and figure out what day I missed.
I'll let him decide about that one.
All right, and next is chapter 15 and
Let's-
16.
Let's get headed, and I will see you guys. Well, I'll see you guys sooner, but we'll see everyone for chapters 15 at least already read, and 16 on the 20th. 15 and 16 on the 20th. It would be really funny if it was like on the 17th, like 15 and 16 on the 17th.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. I think that's everything. So everybody say bye.
Bye.
Bye.